Hello and welcome. I'm your host, CJ Colt. For tonight's story, we will be traveling back in time through the Bible. So relax and let's get started with God Calls Abram. Now Abram lived about 400 years after the flood, and he came from the family of Seth, whom God had blessed. Abram lived at Ur in Chaldea. There came a time when God appeared to him and made the great promise, saying, "Leave the country in which you live and your relations, and go to a land I will show you. I am going to make you into a great nation, and through you and that nation shall come blessings to all peoples of the world." So Abram moved out of Ur as God had commanded him. He took with him Sarai his wife, Terah his father, and Lot his nephew, and they came to Haran. They stopped at Haran, and there Terah died and was buried. Abram then moved on to the land of Canaan with all his servants and his cattle. It was a long, long journey, and it took them many months to reach Canaan. When they rested there, God said to Abram, "This is the land I am giving to you and your descendants." Then Abram built an altar on the spot where the Lord God appeared to him, and he worshiped the Lord. Afterwards, Abram traveled around the country to see the land God had given him. The Canaanites were still living there. Abram pitched his tent among the hills near to Bethel. From there he moved his flocks of cattle and sheep to different places as they had need of pasture. The servants of Lot, Abram's nephew, were always quarreling with the servants of Abraham over where their animals should feed. Lot had also become rich in herds of cattle. So Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no quarreling between us. It is best if we separate and go different ways. Would you like to choose which way you want to go, and I will go the other way?" Lot looked around, and he saw that the valley of the river Jordan was lush and green. This would be very good for his cattle. It looked beautiful and fertile. "I will have all the plain of Jordan," he said. And so they parted. Lot went to live among the cities of the plain, and he pitched his tent near Sodom. But the men of Sodom were evil before God. As soon as Lot had gone, God said to Abraham again, "All the land you see is yours. I am giving it to you and your children. There is going to be a great nation of people coming to you." It was as if God said, "Abram, you have let Lot have the best part of the land, but really it is all yours. It is the land I am giving you." However, Lot was soon in danger. Some tribes who lived in the hills decided to invade the cities of the plain. They came and fought with the people who lived there. They defeated the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and took away all they could from those cities. They also captured Lot and all he had. But one person escaped and came and told Abram that Lot and all his people had been taken away captive. Abram armed all his men and marched off in the night after the raiders. he had 318 trusty servants. They caught up with the invaders and defeated them. Abram rescued his nephew Lot, his family and servants, and all their goods, and brought them back again. On the way back, God's priest met Abram and blessed him. Once more, God spoke to Abram and promised to reward him. Then Abram said to God, "But Lord, I have no children of my own. My wife and I are growing too old to have a child now. How can your promise come true?" God replied, "You will have a son, and your family will become a great nation. There will be more people than you can count. Now look up at the starry sky and begin to count the stars on the clear night. You will never finish counting them. There are so many. Your family, all your descendants, will be more than the number of stars in the heavens." Abram believed God, even when he could not understand how it could happen. He worshiped the Lord God with a sacrifice, and God told him more about what was going to happen to his family. "Abram, your descendants are going to be slaves in another land for 400 years. They are going to suffer, but at the end of that time, I will punish the nation that made them slaves, and they will come away with wealth and many possessions." Now Sarai, his wife, had a maidservant whom she had brought back from Egypt. Her name was Hagar. Sarai agreed that Hagar should have a son for Abram, and so Ishmael was born. But it caused trouble in the family. This was not the son God had promised. "No," said the Lord to Abram, "Sarai, your wife, shall have a son herself, and his name is to be Isaac. I am changing your wife's name from Sarai to Sarah, which means princess, and I am changing your name from Abram to Abraham, the father of many." God made a solemn promise to Abraham. When he is born, Isaac is to be the one through whom I will bless the whole world. But still no baby came. Then one day, Abraham was sitting at his tent door in the heat of the day when he saw 3 men. There was something special about them. They did not look quite like ordinary men. "Do not pass by," Abraham said to them. "Come and wash and refresh yourselves. Stop, and I will get you something to eat." He called Sarah. "Prepare a meal for these men, some fresh bread, tender meat, and milk for them to drink." So they agreed to stop and talk to Abraham. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked. "She is in the tent," answered Abraham. Then they gave him some good news. "This time next year, Sarah is going to have a son." Now Sarah was listening behind the tent door, and she laughed. "I am too old to have a baby now," she said to herself. Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Am I really going to have a baby?'" Then he said, "Is there anything which the Lord cannot do?" "I promise you Sarah will have a son by this time next year." The men got up to go. They turned toward Sodom. Abraham liked talking with them, and they walked along the road together. The Lord said, "Shall I tell Abraham what I'm going to do? I have chosen him. I know that he will bring up his children to keep my way and do that which is right and just. No, I will not hide from Abraham what is going to happen." "Abraham," God said, "the sins of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah are very grievous. I am going down there now." Abraham was alarmed. His relative Lot was there. Lot had, in fact, moved into the city of Sodom itself. Abraham prayed to the Lord, "Suppose there are godly people there. Will you really destroy those people with all the wicked ones? If there are 50 of your people there, you would not sweep away the righteous ones with the wicked, would you? Surely the judge of the earth will do right." The Lord answered Abraham, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will not destroy the city." Abraham spoke again. "May I speak again? I ought to be careful how I speak to you, O God. But suppose there are only 45 righteous people there. Will you still destroy the whole city? If I find 45 righteous people there, I will not destroy the city," God responded. "Suppose there are only 40, Abraham asked. "I will not do it if there are 40, said the Lord. "Do not be angry with me," pleaded Abraham. "Will you if there are only 30? "I will not do it if there are 30, the Lord replied. 20? asked Abraham. "Not for 20, the Lord replied. "May I speak this last time?" Abraham asked. "What if only 10 righteous can be found there?" God answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy the city." Then the Lord left, and Abraham went back home to his tent. The 2 angels went down to Sodom. Arriving in the evening, they met Lot, who bowed down to them and asked them to stay at his house that night. They said that they would not trouble him, but he urged them to wash and eat and rest at his home. That night, the wicked men of Sodom came to Lot's house and demanded that he sent the men out so that they could attack them. The men of Sodom began to get violent, but they were struck with blindness and could not find the door of Lot's house to break it down. The 2 men said to Lot, "Take your family out of here quickly. God is going to destroy this whole city. Hurry." The husbands of Lot's daughters did not believe Lot. They thought he was joking. The 2 heavenly messengers said to Lot at daybreak, "You must go, or you will all be destroyed in this city." Lot, his wife, and his daughters still lingered. The angels took them by the hand and hurried them away. "Escape for your life. Don't stop anywhere in the plain, and don't look back until you get to the mountains. Nothing can be done until you are out." As soon as Lot, his wife, and his daughters were away, the Lord rained down fire and burning sulfur out of the heavens and destroyed all those wicked cities of the plain. Abraham got up that morning and looked down towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and he saw the smoke of the burned-out cities. But God had remembered the prayer of Abraham and saved Lot out of that burning, fiery destruction. God also remembered his promise to Abraham and Sarah. The baby came for which they had waited so long. How happy they were when little Isaac was born. He grew up a strong lad and was able to help his father with all the cattle and the sheep. Again God spoke to Abraham, but it was different this time. "Abraham," God called. "Yes, Lord, I'm here." Then God said a very strange thing. "I want you to go with your son Isaac, your only son, whom you love very dearly, to the land of Moriah, and to one of the mountains which I shall show you. I want you to sacrifice him there as a burnt offering." Abraham could not understand this. He had waited so long for his son. God had given him Isaac as he had promised, and now the Lord God was asking for him to be sacrificed. How was God going to make from Abraham's son the family, the tribe, the nation he had promised, if Isaac was to be offered as a sacrifice to God? What a fine, strong lad he was, and now he was to die. Abraham could not understand. Why did it have to be? But even as Abraham had always obeyed God, so he did now. Early next morning, he arose and prepared for the journey. It would take them 3 days. He saddled his donkey and gathered together all they would need. He cut the wood for the burnt offering and took some food and water. With 2 servants, Abraham and Isaac set off. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place where he was to go. He stopped and said to his 2 servants, "You stay here with the donkey. My boy and I are going up to the mountain to a place where we have to worship, and then we will come back to you again." Abraham put the wood on his son's shoulder, and carrying the knife and the fire himself, he and the boy began to climb the mountain together. As they were going, Isaac said, "My father." "Yes, my son," answered Abraham. "We have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" "God will provide himself a lamb," Abraham said. At last the boy and his father reached the place of sacrifice, and Abraham slowly gathered stones with his son to build the altar. When it was built, he explained to Isaac what the Lord had told him to do. Abraham arranged the wood in place, after which Isaac was laid on the altar and was bound there with cords. Then Abraham went to pick up the knife to slay his son. A voice from heaven rang out, "Abraham, Abraham." Abraham was startled. "I am here, Lord, I am here." "Do not lay your hands on the lad. Do nothing to hurt him, for now I know that you reverence God, since you have not even kept your son, your only son from me." Abraham untied the cords that bound his son, and as he looked, there behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. So Abraham took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham called the mountain, "The Lord will provide," because the Lord did provide a sacrifice for himself. Once more, God reminded Abraham of his promises and blessed him there. So Abraham and Isaac went back to the men, and they returned home, where Abraham taught Isaac all he knew. He trained his son to love God and to live to please him in every way.